Hello and welcome back to J Hart Model Works. I was doing some prep, doing the body prep on the Tamiya XJ220, and I've sanded off my mold lines, just kind of gone over it, made sure all the panel lines are nice and deep, and I got to a part that I thought might be a good tutorial or maybe a good tip to pass along to people like me who struggle with mirrors. So in this kit, we have very nicely detailed mirrors, but see that surface, the mounting surface, is flat. It is supposed to get mounted on the body right about here, right on a nice curve, and there is no locating point on here. Most model kits are getting better about this, but this one, it just has no locating point. And so what typically used to happen when I first started kits is I would put a dab of super glue on here, have my nice painted body all polished and ready and beautiful, and then I put that mirror right there on the super glue, and it's not right exactly where I want it to be, so I move it around. And I finally get it where I want it to go, and the super glue oozes out, gets on my fingers. It may or may not actually set real well. I'll break it off. I'll have to put some more glue on there, put it back in there. Meanwhile, that super glue is eating the crap out of my paint, and I end up with a blob of glue and paint and just general nastiness. And I was watching Tom over at the Scale Modeling channel, and I saw him do this, and this was really useful for me. So what I'm going to show you is how I handle mirrors that come like this. Now for this, what we're going to need is obviously our parts. We're going to need, I use 22 gauge jewelry wire. One of my other hobbies is making jewelry. I haven't done that in a while, but I still have lots of leftover wire which I use for detailing. The stuff is also really good. I keep some 20 and some 22 suspension parts, custom sway bars, stuff like that. Fuel lines can sometimes, you can use this to get away with that. Very useful stuff. So you got your wire. We're gonna need some wire cutters, pair of scissors, our pin vise, just a cheap little Amazon.com pin vise. I think it was $6. A set of drill bits. I do all my measuring in metric, so we're going to be using the 0.4 millimeter and the 0.7 millimeter bit on this. A bit of glue, a fine tip, ultra fine tip permanent marker. I used to use Sharpies, but I would find that I would use them once or twice on some plastic, and then they would stop writing altogether. I don't know what it is about Sharpie and plastic. Maybe I was doing something wrong, who knows, but they just didn't work. I picked up this cheap set of permanent markers from Walmart, of all places. I think it was like $5-6, maybe $7. Fairly cheap. I got 2 blacks in there, which are always important to get blacks. Some of these other colors are useful sometimes. Doing wood or doing turn signals. I usually use some Tamiya clear, but every now and then I'll use permanent marker for turn signals or clear lights. And some double-sided 3M tape. I hate this stuff. I really do. I almost never use it. It doesn't really hold that well. But every now and then it comes in useful, and it's going to come in useful today. So that being said, let's get to mounting a mirror. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole right here in our body. But to do that, we need to know where we want it, and that's where this double-sided sticky tape comes from. So like I said, this stuff doesn't stick super well. It's usually real hard to get this off. For the purpose of this video, I pre-cut a small piece and then peeled at it to get it nice and easy. So you're going to push that into where you want. Take some fine scissors. I just use a cheap pair of beard and mustache trimming scissors. You want to be very careful. Trim around the part. But you don't want to cut the part. This is not super easy, as this is a curved mirror mount. Instead of being flat. But you want to trim as much of this off as you can, because we're going to be marking around it. Any that you can't trim off, you're going to push up around the sides, because you don't want this laying flat on the body, because that's where you've got to mark. We'll take our part, figure out where we want it on the body, and try to press that home. You just want to make sure it's where you want it. You don't really, we're not looking at perfection. This is not permanent in any way, shape, or form. We just want to be able to take and make some guide marks. Try not to move the mirror, but you want to get right up on it as much as you can. So that gives you a general idea of where your mirror is going to sit. I'm going to try to get right in here. So I have a general location for where I know I want to drill. So I'm going to take my 0.4 millimeter bit out and put it in here. These are PC board drill bits. They fit real well in this one. I've got another pin vise that it just doesn't fit that well in. So you want to kind of find the center area. And very gently start a pilot hole. You don't want to put a lot of pressure. These bits break in a heartbeat. I now have 4 sets of these bits floating around, where the bottom half of most of them are broken off. You just want to hold enough pressure to keep it still and to drill through. So with the top finger, you're just really holding that needle upright and straight, or that bit. And you're just going to twist it gently and it will finally go through. There. Don't pull. If you try to pull again, you'll probably break the needle. Twist it the other direction to bring it back out. So there's the beginning hole. That's our pilot. Next, we're going to move to our 0.7. And the reason we're doing the 0.7 is this jewelry wire is 0.64 millimeters. 0.7 is going to give us a little bit of wiggle room and consideration for paint. I like to do this before I paint. I'm always worried that if I try drilling after, I'm going to crack the paint. I'll have a big chunk come off, you know. I just don't want to damage the finish like that. 0.7 millimeter bit, you're going to do the same thing, just barely hold it in place, drill through the body. This 0.7 can still snap in a heartbeat. Be gentle, take your time. I like to drill the hole a couple of times just to basically make sure that I get it drilled out properly. Next, I'm going to take my wire and I'm just going to make sure that I have enough room for it to go in. I want to make sure it fits properly, which we got a nice fit. Again, like I said, it's not going to be super snug. I'm leaving some room for paint. Paint's going to shrink this up a little bit. I may re-drill this after I paint just to widen it back up to get my, because I may have to. But it's easier to drill when the hole's already there than to try drilling straight onto paint. I'm just cursed. I will break something. I will chip off some paint, scratch the body, or whatnot. So that's got our hole drilled. Next thing we're going to do is take some paper towel and some cleaner, degreaser. You can use isopropyl alcohol. I'm using this Ultimate Airbrush Cleaner. The stuff is real good for cleaning out Styrene Res, UMP primer, any kind of acrylics. It's not for lacquers though, but it's a good airbrush cleaner, and it takes Sharpie marker off or permanent marker off in a heartbeat. So you can mark the body up all day long, do your sanding, do whatever you need to do, and then come back in and just clean it up. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to drill our mirror. So you want to look at all the angles on it. You want to see the angle you need to drill in on the sides. You want to look at the angle you want to drill in on the front. Because if you just drill straight, you're going to go straight out the side, and you don't want to do that. So again, we're going to go back to our 0.4. We're going to drill a pilot hole in here. I'm leaving the double-sided tape on for right now. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to Sharpie or marker the surface. So I'm in my 40s. It's kind of hard to see sometimes, and that's going to give me an easier surface to see where I'm drilling than trying to see. So this is easier to see than it is straight against that gray plastic. Find the center of your surface. And again, very gently drill. Watch your side angle. Watch your top angle. And you don't want to drill all the way through here. You just want to get started. We're just putting enough of a hole in that we can get some wire glued in there. So now that our 0.4 hole is started, go back to the 0.7. And just widen it up a bit. Drilling process takes some of that tape off. That's perfectly fine. We're not keeping that tape on. I'll go ahead and take it off. The tape was just there for giving us a temporary mount, which it looks like I missed. Off center by just a little bit. Sometimes if you're off center, you got to just commit to it. Sometimes you can get away with re-drilling. Just depends on how far off you are, honestly. It looks like I'm going to have to commit to what I've got. Again, we don't want to drill too far, we don't want to drill too deep. Just want to make sure we got enough room that we can get a little bit of wire in there. Again, we're going to test fit our wire. Make sure it slides in. Did not like that. All right. We'll straighten this back out, and we're going to add some super glue. Good old-fashioned CA glue. Should have checked to make sure the tip was clean before I started. Just want a tiny bit on that tip. And insert it in our mirror. We are almost done. The next step is to take our wire cutters and cut down a bit. And there we go. So this is going to do a couple of things for us. One, it's going to give us a place. If you paint like I do, you use these alligator clips. So you now have somewhere to hold your mirror so you can get all the surfaces really well. You're not having to hold some part of it or try to get some tape in there to give you a holding point. You've now got a good solid holding point. But when you go and after your body's all painted and you're ready to do your final assembly, you're just going to slide this in here. Find the hole you drilled on the body. Just work that straight in. Now you're going to come back and you're going to put your CA glue here on the inside. I like to use a thicker, like a gel type CA glue that'll give me a couple of seconds to kind of flip this around and get it where I want it. If you want to, you can hit it with some CA accelerator to insta cure type stuff. Sorry about that shaky cam moment. So some of this insta set, I wouldn't. Just get this where you want it, let it sit for 30 seconds or so, and it should be ready. Maybe give it a minute or so to dry. Then you're going to come back in and you can trim off any excess that sticks out past where your glue's at. Don't cut into your glue or you might break off, but just gently trim off that excess so you don't have any interference when you go to mount your body or your interior or anything like that. I used to use, at one point in time, I used to use some of this K&S number 500 piano wire is what they call it. This stuff also is really good for making parts. I keep the 500 and the 501, so it's good for making like suspension parts, sway bars, stuff like that. But this stuff is so hard. I've literally destroyed cutters. Those used to be smooth. But this stuff is just so hard, and it's so hard to cut that I've destroyed cutters with it. So the only thing I've found that really cuts it easily is a Dremel tool with a cutting bit, and I don't want to take the risk of trying to trim inside the body with a Dremel tool saw. And like I said, Murphy come along, and I'm prone to accidents, come in here and cut a hole in my body or something. So it's still a useful product. It's not something I use for this anymore. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Have any questions, put them in the comments below. Any comments, any tips of your own, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching another episode of J Hart Model Works, and have a great day.